The date was January 19, 1597. Deep inside the forests of Mewar, a brave warrior was taking his final breaths. This was the lion of Rajputana, the man who had shaken the mighty Mughal Empire and never bowed before Akbar. A deep battle wound had turned fatal, slowly weakening him. And on that day, in 1597, a life spent fighting for honor, freedom, and self respect came to an end. Maharana Pratap left this world, but not his legacy. You have probably heard this story before, but here is something most people don't know. Did you know that even after the Battle of Haldighati, in his final days, Maharana Pratap did something that actually helped the Mughals secure victory? Very few people know how Maharana Pratap spent his final years. What hardships did he face after the Battle of Haldighati? How did he survive for years while wandering through forest and living in exile? Even after Haldighati, Maharana Pratap continued to challenge Akbar in ways that united the Rajputs. In reality, the Battle of Haldighati was only the beginning. Maharana Pratap never allowed Mughals to claim a decisive victory. That is why the story of how Maharana Pratap died is a question everyone should know the answer to. What was he doing in his final moments? What concern did he express for his son Amar Singh, and what promise did he make before his death? And did Akbar truly feel grief over Maharana Pratap's death, or was it only a political gesture? You will learn all this in today's video. Stay us till the end, because if you don't know your history, how will you ever know yourself? Friends, Mewar had always been the homeland of Maharana Pratap's family. From Rana Kumbha to Rana Sanga, then Maharana Pratap, and later his son Amar Singh. Mewar remained their stronghold. Everyone knows the story of Battle of Haldighati, but the real struggle of Maharana Pratap actually began after that battle. Sadly, very few people know what happened next. So first, I will tell you about the period after Haldighati, about Maharana Pratap's true life of hardship and resistance. After that, we will turn to Amar Singh and finally to the wound that eventually took Maharana Pratap's life. The Battle of Haldighati was fought on June 18, 1576. Some believe Maharana Pratap won the battle, while others believe Akbar was victorious. What do you think? Tell us in the comments. Historians like Satish Chandra says the battle lasted only 4 hours, but it began a long struggle that changed Maharana Pratap's life. After Haldighati, he was forced to leave his palaces and live in the forest. He took shelter in the Aravalli hills and began planning how to reclaim his land from Akbar. Instead of direct battles, Maharana Pratap adopted guerrilla warfare. That is why Abul Fazl, Akbar's court historian, wrote in Akbarnama that even after Haldighati, the Mughal army could never fully capture Mewar. From the hills and forest, Maharana Pratap continued to trouble the Mughals again and again. During this period, Maharana Pratap was moving through the forest while trying to rebuild his army. This was not easy. Resources were limited and survival itself was a challenge. Still, he brought together his trusted Rajput chieftains and launched surprise attacks on the Mughals, causing them heavy losses. His strategy was clear: defeat the Mughals in small parts and stop them from fully taking control of Mewar. This guerrilla warfare troubled the Mughals greatly, and they failed to capture Maharana Pratap. But constant fighting created serious money problem. The treasury was empty, the army weakened, and there were severe shortages of food and weapon. Historian Gopinath Sharma writes that at this time, Maharana Pratap received help from his minister Bhama Shah, who gave him 25 lakh coins. This support helped Pratap reorganize his army. With renewed strength, he began pushing the Mughal out of several regions through a series of small but effective battles. The Battle of Diver took place in 1582 and Maharana Pratap achieved a major victory. In this battle, he destroyed several Mughal outposts and reclaimed a large part of his lost territory. Even after this success, he continued fighting the Mughals for another 17 years, right up until his death. The historian Kaviraj Shyamal Das, in his famous book Veer Vinod, writes that Maharana Pratap died on January 19, 1597. He spent the final days of his life in Chawand, which is in present-day Udaipur, Rajasthan. He was cremated nearby on the banks of a river in a village called Mandoli. An 8-pillared memorial was later built at this site. Historians mention that a strange incident took place on the day Maharana Pratap died. Gauri Shankar Harichand writes in his book Udaipur Ka Itihas that Maharana Pratap was deeply worried about his son, Amar Singh. He was in great pain, and seeing this, his close companions asked why he was not letting go of life peacefully. Maharana Pratap replied that his son Amar Singh was too fond of comfort and he feared that he might not be able to protect the honor of the kingdom. He said that if they promised to safeguard the honor of Mewar and his family, only then would he give up his life. The feudal lords took an oath on the throne of Bappa Rawal and made that promise. Only after this did Maharana Pratap breathe his last. This is a story of Maharana Pratap's death, but there are many different accounts about the illness that led to it. Because of these differing versions, it is difficult to reach a final conclusion. However, the most popular account says that Maharana Pratap, who had defeated the Mughals many times, was once wounded in the stomach while hunting a lion with his bow. The wound became serious and left him ill for a long time. He eventually died in this weakened condition on January 19, 1597. With his death, a major challenge facing Akbar came to an end. It is said that Akbar was deeply saddened when he heard the news. There is a little debate in history about their reaction because the person who informed Akbar about Maharana Pratap's death was himself a Rajput. In the book History of Udaipur State, poet Dursa Adha writes that when Akbar received the news of Maharana Pratap's death, he was deeply saddened. The people present were surprised because they expected Akbar to be pleased, but that did not happen. Dursa Adha records that Akbar bit his tongue in shock, paused for a moment and took a deep breath as if the news had left him unsettled. Now, if we look at this closely, it is easy to understand why. Many powerful kings and princely states had surrendered to Akbar, yet Maharana Pratap never did it. Akbar may have felt sorrow because he had lost a rival who stood firm till the end. At the same time, he respected Maharana Pratap for his strong sense of self-respect. While many rulers chose comfort and convenience, Maharana Pratap accepted hardship and fought battle after battle to protect his honor. Though he ruled a small kingdom, he spent his entire life resisting Akbar rather than living in luxury. Poet Dursa Adha writes these lines while describing Akbar's reaction to Maharana Pratap's death. Aslego andag paglego annami, navaroje na gayo na go astan nawali. Galot Rana Jeet Jio Dasan Mund Rasan Dasi. Through this line, Dursa Adha explains what Maharana Pratap truly represented. The meaning is this: O Gehlot Rana Pratap, even in death you defeated the emperor. When the news of your death reached Akbar, the Shah pressed his tongue between his teeth in shock and sorrow. You never allowed Mughal control to touch your horses or your land. You never bowed your turban before anyone. Even after losing your kingdom, you held the reins of your destiny on your own shoulder. Your queens never attended Mughal festivals like Navroj, and you never stood under the emperor's window seeking favor. That is why Dursa Adha concludes Maharana Pratap won in every sense, and despite all his power, the emperor lost. If we look closely at the meaning of this poem, one detail stands out. The practice of branding horses was first introduced by Alauddin Khilji to keep track of cavalry numbers. This practice was later revived during Akbar's reign. Maharana Pratap never allowed his horses to be branded. This meant he never accepted Akbar's authority and never bowed his turban before him. That is why, according to the poem, Akbar was left astonished. He bit his tongue in shock and shed tears because even after death, Maharana Pratap remained unconquered. Now the question is, who was Dursa Adha who could speak such strong words before Akbar? Friends, the history of the Rajputs in Rajasthan was traditionally recorded by the Bhat and Charan communities. Their poetic skills was extraordinary. It is said that they could compose and recite verses instantly. Poets and Bhats were deeply respected, and even the harshest truths spoken by them were accepted without offense. Akbar too was known to respect artists and poets. That is why he remained silent when these lines were recited to him. They reflected a bitter truth. Historians do note that not every detail may be fully accurate, but most historical accounts agree on one thing: Akbar was genuinely saddened by Maharana Pratap's death. So friends, this was the story of the final days of Maharana Pratap, how he lived, how he died, and how even his greatest rival reacted to his passing. Maharana Pratap may have lost his kingdom for a time, but he never lost his self respect. He chose hardship over comfort, resistance over surrender, and honor over power. That is why his story is not just history, it's a lesson. If this video helped you see Maharana Pratap beyond the Battle of Haldighati, then share it with others, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments what does Maharana Pratap's life means to you today. Because when we understand our history, we understand who we truly are. Thank you.